Hey guys, this is Scott from Forgot to Grow Podcast, and welcome to another edition of Rewatch, Revisit, Review, our weekly video series where I talk about a different movie I haven't seen in a while, talk about my thoughts after revisiting it, and then give you guys my review for that movie. And today I'm talking about The Expendables 3 because the 4th anniversary for that movie is coming up tomorrow, August 15th, depending on when you're watching this. So I thought that was a good reason. I'd already watched it over the weekend anyway, so it fit perfectly for the rewatch, revisit, review video for this week. So talking about Expendables 3, but we'll get into that more once we get into the video, which will start now. Okay guys, so as I do for all rewatches, I'm going to give you the IMDb plot summary for the movie to start, just so you have some idea of what happened in this film before we go forward. So, the IMDb plot summary says Barney, played by Sylvester Stallone, Christmas, played by Jason Statham, and the rest of the team comes face to face with Conrad Stonebanks, played by Mel Gibson, who years ago co-founded the Expendables with Barney. Stonebank becomes a ruthless arms dealer and someone who Barney was forced to kill, or so he thought. Stonebanks, who had eluded death once before, now is making it his mission to end the Expendables. But Barney has other plans. Barney decides he has to fight old blood with new blood and brings in a new era of Expendables team members, recruiting individuals who are younger, faster, and more tech savvy. So the latest mission becomes a clash of classic old school style versus high-tech expertise in the Expendables' most personal battle yet. So that's a summary for you guys. That makes this movie sound a whole lot better than it ended up being, but I like this movie, even though it's kind of terrible. But yeah, like I said before, I watched this on Netflix because it is the 4th anniversary of its release, and it kind of lined it up perfectly with the release of this video, so I figured, why not? I also don't have Blade, which has its 20th anniversary next week, and I didn't want to watch Tropic Thunder for its 10th anniversary, which is also August 15th. So the Expendables 3 worked out perfectly, / I'd already watched it without planning on for it to be this week's movie, but when I was rewatching Mission Impossible 2, I learned I hadn't watched Mission Impossible, so it doesn't really fit for the rewatch, revisit, review. Apparently I hadn't seen Mission Impossible 2, who knew? I didn't until I rewatched it. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about The Expendables 3. We'll get into more of my thoughts about that in the revisit section now. Alright, so my thoughts after revisiting The Expendables 3 is that it's still a fun, insane, and entertaining action film. However, it's a flawed movie, especially this third one. The Expendables franchise in general has a good premise. Bring all these classic action stars together in one team-up movie. It was great. It was the Avengers of the 90s in a sense, because, back in the 80s and 90s, we didn't have that many comic book movies, like none to speak of really. And so these Arnold Schwarzeneggers and Sylvester Stallones were our superheroes, those action stars who were just a little bit over the top. And so when I first learned that this Expendables movies were being made, I was so excited for the concept. And the first one didn't disappoint me really at all. It did what it was supposed to. The second one, it tried, and it was still fine. The second and third one, the third one, what I'm talking about today, are fine, but they're not great. They got a bunch of different problems with them, but they are still fun, kind of balls to the wall, gun and explosion filled action movies. So it's hard to hate on it too much, but I understand why critics and audiences alike maybe didn't like this one as much, because it does have some glaring flaws, and I will admit that. I'm not going to defend this movie like I defend certain other films. But overall, I don't mind the introduction of the newer team in this one, because I like the dynamic of, the new hot shots versus the old guard. I just like that balance, and I always enjoy that dynamic in any movie, really. It doesn't quite live up to it. We don't get much of the old team. We don't see quite as much conflict between the old and the new team as I would have liked. But that's really neither here or there. But I am super forgiving of any Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, especially Arnold Schwarzenegger, because he's my man, the Governator. So this movie kind of gets a pass because of those two, and the fact that it's a fun action film. You get to see a team up of all these action stars, who I idolized when I was a kid, and so this movie just kind of speaks to my younger self and kind of makes me happy in that nostalgic way of being like, oh yeah, we're getting all these guys back. These guys are finally together, even though in my mind, when I was a kid, I always imagined them being able to do stuff together, but finally be able to put it on the screen. And so that's why this movie kind of just gets a little bit of a pass for me because of that. But we'll talk more about that in the review section now. Okay, so for the review for The Expendables 3, we'll start off with the critics and audience rating, so you guys have an idea of what they thought before we get to mine. So IMDb gave it, the IMDb rating for The Expendables 3 is 6.1 out of 10, so not the worst score. But once we get over to Rotten Tomatoes, we see the critics gave it a 32% on the tomato meter with a 4.8 out of 10 average score, which is definitely one of the worst scores it gets and a pretty bad score. As you guys can see, critics hated this movie. They didn't really like it at all. Some kind of did. That's where it gets a middling average score. But overall, they just did not like it. But the audiences on Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 49% on the tomato meter with a 6.6 out of 10. So audiences liked it a little bit more. Some people fell a little more into my category, just liking it for the nostalgia and the stupid action that it is. But overall, it's still not the most popular or high-rated film. And as we go to Metacritic, we see it gets a 35, which normally I'd be a little upset about such a low movie, like a low score on a movie I like, but I like this movie because it is kind of a bad movie, but it's still an action film. To me, it's almost a spoof, but not quite. There's some satire in it. It's a whole thing. I just like it because it reminds me of the good old 80s and 90s action films that we just don't get anymore. The ridiculous premise thing, except for like Fast and Furious kind of falls under that, but those ones still aren't quite as like, I don't know. There's something that those guys just bring to it, the Stallones and the Schwarzeneggers. They just bring something to it that I can't get past, to be honest. So that's why when we get to my personal rating, I give it at least a 1 thumbs up, which is like a 50%, a little over 50. So I'm around where the audience score was for like Rotten Tomatoes, which is, yeah, I like this movie, but it's, like I said, it's kind of a good, I like it because it's kind of an okay action film, even though it's a bad film overall. There's a bunch of things I don't like. The CGI scene to begin with, and there's way too much CGI used in this film overall, especially considering all these stars came from a time when they had no CGI, and that's what made them all like such big stars, was they were all in these crazy action movies that just had big explosions and stuff. So the fact that this third one was just all CGI was slightly disappointing to me, which is why it only gets a 1 thumb up. But my favorite part about this movie is definitely we get that final showdown. Like, as always, I like that. I like the climax of the film. Like, don't blame me. I'm sorry. That's how stories are written. But that final battle, or the final fight between Stallone and Mel Gibson's character was just a fun kind of classic fist fight we used to get from those 80s and 90s films. And I like when the final showdown's a fist fight, and the fact that it was these two veteran action stars is just, of course, that's going to be my favorite scene. But the last part of the video we're getting to is my recommendation for The Expendables 3, which is, if you've seen this movie before, then you already know if you want to rewatch it or not. If you haven't seen this movie yet, there's probably a reason you haven't watched it. But if you're like me and you do love cheesy, kind of fun action films, then this might be a good rewatch for you, but probably not. It's hard to say. Like I said, this movie kind of falls into a very particular kind of niche, I think, and that's where I just kind of in there a little bit. But anyways, guys, let me know in the comments below what you thought of Expendables 3. Are you on the critic side and you hated it? Are you on my side and you kind of like it? Or you just never seen it? Love to hear your guys' comments in the comments below. Thanks for joining me today, guys, and have a good one.